From the basement of La Penta, it's WICR.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sports Vault. Jersey Joe and Big Shot Rob back for the final segment. And look, we kind of set the standard that when there are things that are tremendously awful, we're going to talk about them on the show. There's a lot of things that have been tremendously awful in the National Football League. Before we get into the Monday night game from that last night, Rob, I think at this point of the season, we really have a good feel for it. I mean, it's week 8. We have a good feel for where every team is. I don't think there's any team worse in the NFL than the Detroit Lions. I think tremendously awful might be an understatement for how bad they are. How do the Lions go from where they were last year, being so organized, so disciplined, making the playoffs, to now being a team that just has no clue? They're not even prepared for football games. They're an embarrassment.
I really don't even have an answer for that. You would think, Joe, that they all had their playbook this year and they had it upside down and they're just reading it backwards. These guys are like a lost cause out there. You can't tell me.
They don't know where they are.
The loss of Sue cannot change the whole dynamic of this team whatsoever.
No, absolutely not.
Matthew Stafford, I don't know what is wrong with him. Matthew Stafford does not look like a number 1 pick anymore.
No.
They need to start going in the draft, get rid of these guys now. Get rid of him. Unfortunately, you have to get rid of Calvin Johnson. You got to get some product from him. Get a couple products. You can get a couple draft picks. You know what? Calvin Johnson doesn't want to stay here forever and not win anything. Detroit's always been like this, Joe, though. Since the 2000s, the team always struggles. There's never going to be any fixing in Detroit whatsoever.
Well, this falls on Jim Caldwell, too. I mean, look, I was totally... What he did last season is extremely impressive. He took a team that had no discipline, that was never organized and prepared for football games, and just flipped the script. They were always prepared. They were always disciplined. They did all the right things. To have that all fall apart in year 2 so quickly is just unacceptable, and I don't understand how it happens. They really are. I mean, it's not difficult to see who's prepared to play and who's not prepared to play in the National Football League. And you could see very easily the Lions don't have a clue what they're doing out there. It's a watch. Did you guys see any of the game against the Chiefs in London the other day?
I did not watch it, but I just know I saw the score and I said, when the Chiefs are playing without their top running back, how do you still give up 45 points?
There are times when you watch the Lions defensively and there's no effort there. Mm-hmm. They're in the wrong place. They're misreading things. It's infuriating because this is a professional football team, and I'll be honest, when you look at the Lions right now, it's not a professional team. There's no organization. People are not preparing. People are not doing things. Somebody's going to have to be accountable. Right now, the Lions are a mess. I'll tell you who else is a mess, though. The San Francisco 49ers. Colin Kaepernick being benched for this weekend. Rob, you coined the term tremendously awful when describing Colin Kaepernick. Is it just about time that they finally called it quits on the Colin Kaepernick experiment?
Yes, it is time to get rid of Copernicus.
Copernicus?
Tremendously awful. He's tremendously awful. That's a hot... Joe, that's a clap for that. Tremendously awful. That's probably the greatest word I ever created.
I agree, Rob. That was a defining moment.
That guy, Joe, is just god-awful. There's no word to describe Kaepernick. He can't do anything. Ever since Harbaugh left, the team has just been like a mudslide. They all go down. I have no idea why last year, in June of 2014, they gave him that deal. 6 years, $114 million. You have to be out of your right mind to give a guy like this that amount of money.
And see, I agree completely. The only smart thing, and this is so telling, the fact that they designed his contract this way. They designed his contract basically, so I think it works out to he's making about $16 million every year. But at the end of each year, if they cut him, they're off the hook. They owe him no money except for that year's money. So if the 49ers decide to cut Colin Kaepernick after this season, they only owe him the $16 million for this season in his services. But I think at the same time, if that's the way you design his contract, there's a reason you designed his contract that way, because you didn't have the faith in him. I always felt like this. When Colin Kaepernick was at his best, what did the 49ers have? They had Harbaugh at his helm. They had the best defense arguably in the NFL outside of the Seahawks. They had an outstanding running game behind Frank Gore with a lot of other good backs. He didn't have to do too much. when the defense started losing playmakers, when Frank Gore started getting up there in age, when they lost some of the depth, what happened? Kaepernick had to do more. Kaepernick got exposed. That's the story. That's the story, and I agree with you. I think at this point, look, go ahead.
He's not a well-trimmed quarterback.
No.
That's the thing. He's so used to, when he first started in San Fran, Joe, what did he have? He had so many weapons. So he was able to, if he wasn't passing, he was going to run because he was able to mislead defenses. Now he has absolutely nobody there with him. That's why he can't do anything. And it proves to you that he's not a great quarterback. A great quarterback could play under any kind of circumstance.
100%. Well, one of the great quarterbacks who is having quite the struggle right now is Andrew Luck. Not just Andrew Luck, but the Indianapolis Colts. They lose another heartbreaker last night to the Carolina Panthers. And the Panthers, I mean, look, their season has just been remarkable. Undefeated to this point. They win this one in overtime. I mean, to me, I watched that game last night, and man, I mean, I'm looking... I don't know how much faith I have in the... I think for me, I probably have the least faith in them out of all the undefeated teams, only because you still look, and they do lack playmakers on offense, but Cam Newton, man, he's putting the balls on the money.
Flamethrower, man.
I mean, some of the balls he's throwing are just so accurate. He's putting them in these windows where only his guys can get it. The leap Cam's taking in his game is really impressive. I mean, this is a guy where you question his leadership at times coming into the NFL, but man, he's put in the work. He's become a really good player in this league.
Oh, he most definitely has. Ever since day one, starting off after winning his championship in Auburn, he's had that mission in the NFL. I'm going to get work done, and he's just been amazing. He runs down the field. He gets his passes on point, as you said. And you know what? Starting off 7-0, this team is looking really crazy this year. They got a great defense behind them. I mean, I still don't see them beating the Packers in the playoffs because that's who they'll probably end up facing.
Or the Seahawks if they had to play them in the playoffs.
Seattle, I don't know.
They're a different team, Seattle.
Yeah.
They are. But I think we got to go to the Colts because the Colts, coming into this season, a lot of people had locked for the Super Bowl. You and I never bought into it. Look, they're trying to build a team with old men, with Frank Gore, with Andre Johnson. This is already a roster that's not good. And I think you've seen it. There's a reason the Colts are 3-5. But Andrew Luck is the one consistency the Colts have had that you would not expect him to be struggling as much as he has. Even in the game last night, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And even, I mean, he did lead them really on a nice comeback. I mean, he's 17 points in the fourth quarter. He led the Colts to. But at the same time, in the overtime, he throws the pick. Andrew Luck, there's been a report coming out from that it seemed like he's hurt. He's playing with broken ribs. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm sure he's not 100% health-wise. But that still doesn't explain Andrew Luck's a guy who's never afraid to throw the football into tight windows. He's really a guy who does have the turnovers, but there's just something off collectively about the Colts.
It's been something that's been haunting the Colts for the last couple of years. Offensive line. The general manager does nothing to build an offensive line. Him and Pagano are gone, Joe, in the next 2 weeks. I see it happening in 2 weeks. You can't. You can't. If you have such a great quarterback like that, every year since he's come up, you've moved up 1 round each year in the playoffs. You got to be kidding me. You're not going to build an offensive line to protect him? Especially a guy like Luck. This kid could throw for 50 touchdowns a year. He needs the right balanced line for him. Look at Eli Manning with the Giants. Why was it that Manning had his struggles 2 years ago? Because the line wasn't that great. Look at it now. He has that decent line right for him, and he's throwing touchdowns.
Not just Eli, Phillip Rivers. Look at the couple seasons the Chargers and the Daniels. People are saying, what's wrong with Phillip Rivers? It wasn't as much a Phillip Rivers problem as it was the offensive line was a major problem. But I'm with you. I think if you look at the Colts roster, the year Luck was drafted and the year to now, I don't think it's any better. I think it's just the same. I think Pagano has to go. I think they have to clean house. I really do, because to have Andrew Luck and him carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders is just not fair. You're seeing now, you're going to knock him out early because look at how young he is into his career. And we've seen I think part of these injuries and part of this decline is from carrying such a heavy burden. He's carrying an entire football team. This isn't basketball where it's LeBron James and he's carrying a team to the NBA Finals. This is Andrew Luck carrying a 53-man roster to the AFC Championship game. That's a lot. That puts a lot more stress on the body. It's a different game.
Most definitely is. I mean, you can't do it in football. You need everybody on the field. That's why with football, that's why everybody's on the field. 53-man roster, everybody has to contribute. You can't have one person carrying the load. And, I mean, look at it this way, Joe. The Colts are going to make the playoffs this year, but they're going to get trashed in the playoffs no matter what. They're going to get their home field advantage by losing that wild card game.
I don't think that there's any question about it. It is just not good for the Indianapolis Colts right now. Changes are coming. We go to a team that did make a change today in the Tennessee Titans firing head coach Kedon Whisenhunt after a 1-6 start. I'll be honest, Rob, I was very surprised by this one. Obviously, the Titans haven't performed under his tenure so far, but last year, his first year, I don't really count that one as much. It's year one. He's instituting his system. He didn't have a quarterback. But this year, the 1-6 start, Marcus Mariota is injured. When Marcus Mariota was healthy, he was playing very well. How thrown off were you by Whisenhunt being fired?
Very thrown off. You can't blame Whisenhunt for this.
No.
Mariota got hit by a cheap shot versus Miami by Werner. Werner laid a cheap shot on him. And you got to be kidding me. You're going to fire a guy because of that? Marcus Mariota has been playing as one of the most accurate quarterbacks out there right now. And to just do this now, I think it's a real killer. I think they really are going to mess up their squad by this move. I think it's a stupid move. I mean, look at it now. Whisenhunt's free now. He's a great offensive coach, so it's going to be great wherever he goes. He's going to find a nice offensive John.
Oh, yeah.
But it's pretty stupid to fire, especially Mariota, who he was learning under. Mariota was learning under a great offensive mind, and I think they just really screwed their team.
Well, that's the thing I really don't like. You're taking a rookie quarterback like Mariota, and now you're stunting his growth a little bit. I don't like messing that up. I don't know if Whisenhunt's did anything to deserve to be fired. I don't know. Maybe the more details will come out that he didn't. There was a disagreement with the GM or something like that. But I just don't like the move, again, especially so young into Marcus Mariota's tenure. Going to mess up with a little bit of the rhythm and things like that. But you're right. You look at what Whisenhunt did with the Chargers and Mike McCoy's first season. Ken Whisenhunt gets fired as the Cardinals head coach. He comes over and is the offense coordinator for the Chargers. Phillip Rivers has an outstanding year. He does a lot of nice things. He'll bounce back, but Big Shot Rob always bounces back. The Sports Vault always bounces back. Really good show today. We got to throw in the phrase tremendously awful a couple times. It wasn't easy, Rob. You kind of flubbed it a little bit.
That's why my nickname is Leonard.
Leonard. Oh, that is
my
why.
short-term memory.
Short-term memory, folks. What was that movie called again?
Memento.
Memento.
If you haven't seen it, watch it.
It's definitely a worthy recommendation, yes.
Probably Christopher Nolan's best.
Wait, Christopher Nolan made that?
Yeah.
Rob, you know Christopher Nolan made Batman, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know how
I made Batman. I'm Batman, Joe.
Rob, for people who don't know, well, this is a nice way to end today's show. Rob is Batman. Put it up on Twitter. Put it out there. You know it. We know it. This is Jersey Joe, Big Shot Rob. Well, actually, Batman Rob. So we'll be back next week, same time, same place.